The massive council hall buzzed with nervous energy as alien representatives from across the galaxy gathered for another emergency session. Crystalline walls reflected the soft glow of hundreds of different species, each one hoping someone else would solve their latest crisis. Ambassador Yuna sat perfectly still in the human section. Her dark eyes focused on the center platform where a blue-skinned Villani stood trembling. His scaled hands shook as he activated the holographic display for what everyone knew was the third time today. The image that appeared made even the hardest council members flinch. Burning cities, screaming families, running from massive war machines. Children's playgrounds turned into smoking craters. The Villani's voice cracked as he narrated the horror. 12 worlds, he whispered, his voice barely carrying across the silent chamber. The Torax came without warning. They said we were too weak to deserve our planets. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees. They burned our nurseries first. Always the nurseries. They wanted us to watch our children die before they killed us. Tears streamed down his blue face, leaving silver trails on his scales. Please, honored council. Someone help us. Anyone. The chamber stirred to life with the usual political dance everyone had seen 1,000 times before. The Althari delegation, tall and graceful with their flowing robes, stood first. Their spokesperson cleared his throat, importantly. The Alpha Confederation offers sanctuary ships for Villani refugees. We can house perhaps 50,000 survivors in comfort while we negotiate a peaceful solution. Polite murmurs of approval rippled through some sections. The Zenthi representative, a squat creature with multiple arms, raised 2 hands for attention. Economic sanctions, he declared proudly. We will reduce trade with Torax worlds by 15%. This will surely make them reconsider their aggressive policies. More nodding, more meaningless gestures that everyone knew would accomplish nothing, while entire civilizations burned. The Villani delegate looked around desperately as species after species offered tiny bandages for a gaping wound. Yuna watched it all with cold calculation. She had seen this exact scene dozens of times since humanity joined the galactic community 20 years ago. Aliens loved to talk about problems. They loved committees, and strongly worded letters, and economic pressure that might work in 50 years if everyone cooperated perfectly. But they never actually solved anything. The Villani was still on his knees, hope dying in his large eyes, as he realized the council would debate his people's extinction for months, while offering token assistance. That's when Yuna decided she had heard enough. She stood slowly, her movement causing immediate silence across the chamber. Every alien I turned toward the human section with a mixture of curiosity and deep unease. Humans had a reputation in galactic politics, and it wasn't for long speeches or diplomatic solutions. The Terran Republic will respond within 48 hours, Yuna said simply. The chamber exploded into chaos. Some aliens gasped in shock. Others began arguing loudly in their native languages. The Villani delegate looked up with sudden, desperate hope flooding his features. But Yuna noticed the worried glances exchanged between the older council members, the ones who remembered what happened when humans decided to respond to genocide. They knew this meeting was over. Admiral Minho stood on the bridge of the TNS Retribution, watching his crew prepare for what would either be remembered as a rescue mission or the galaxy's worst nightmare. The massive viewscreen showed dozens of human warships floating in perfect formation, each one bristling with weapons that most alien species couldn't even pronounce. The authorization message had arrived exactly 37 minutes ago. Simple. Words that carried the weight of an entire civilization's fury. Villani genocide confirmed. Operation Cleanslate authorized. No restrictions. Minho had read those words twice, then calmly begun the process that would change everything for the Torax Empire. Around him, 300 crew members worked with the kind of deadly quiet that only came from years of training for moments exactly like this. Lieutenant Hannah looked up from her communication station, her young face serious. Admiral, the Galactic Council is sending urgent requests for our operational parameters. They want to know our exact plans. Minho didn't even glance away from the tactical display showing Torax space. Red dots marked every military installation, every command center, every single facility that had participated in burning Villani children alive. The computers had already calculated firing solutions for all of them. Tell the Council we're conducting humanitarian operations, he said, his voice as calm as if he were ordering coffee. Full compliance with galactic law regarding the protection of civilian populations. Hannah nodded and began typing, but Minho could see the question in her eyes. Everyone on the bridge knew this wasn't going to be a typical humanitarian mission. The weapons being loaded weren't designed for delivering food and medical supplies. The tactical officer, a veteran named Kung Su, cleared his throat. Sir, final count shows 847 Torax military installations across 17 star systems, 12 primary command centers, 3 orbital shipyards. Intelligence confirms all facilities have been involved in genocidal operations. Min nodded, studying the numbers with clinical detachment. No emotion, no anger, just cold mathematical precision. Civilian population estimates. Approximately 4 million Torax civilians in non-military roles. Current projections show 0 civilian casualties if we maintain surgical precision and our rules of engagement. Hannah asked quietly. For the first time, Minho's expression shifted, slightly. Not anger, not hatred, just the kind of absolute certainty that had made humans the most feared species in known space. Complete pacification. Every Torax military officer, above the rank of lieutenant, will be considered a war criminal. No surrender accepted from command structure personnel. The bridge fell silent, except for the quiet hum of computers calculating hyperspace jumps. Everyone understood what complete pacification meant in human military terminology. The Torax military wouldn't be defeated, or captured, or negotiated with. They would simply cease to exist. Fleet status report, Minho ordered. All ships ready for immediate deployment, came the response from multiple stations. Hyperspace coordinates locked, weapon systems armed and ready. Minho looked one last time at the tactical display, then at the faces of his crew. These weren't bloodthirsty warriors eager for battle. They were professionals, doing a job that needed to be done. The Torax had made their choice when they decided to commit genocide. Now humanity would make theirs. Execute. Operation Cleanslate. The fleet vanished into hyperspace, while 3,000 light-years away. The Galactic Council was still arguing about whether to send the Torax a strongly worded diplomatic note expressing their deep concern about recent events. Captain J pressed himself against the cold metal wall of his ship's observation deck, watching Torax Prime spin slowly below them. The massive planet looked peaceful from this distance, its cities glowing like scattered jewels against the dark continents. But Junho knew better. Those cities housed the military command structure that had ordered the systematic murder of billions of innocent Villani. His stealth frigate, the Silent Echo, had been drifting in the shadow of Torax Prime's largest moon for almost 6 hours now. The ship's advanced cloaking systems made them completely invisible to Torax sensors. Just another piece of space debris in an already cluttered orbital zone. For 2 weeks, Junho's reconnaissance team had been the ghosts of Torax space. They had slipped between star systems, mapping every military installation, every command bunker, every single facility that contributed to the Torax war machine. This wasn't normal intelligence gathering for a typical military operation. This was something far more thorough and terrifying. Captain, came a voice from behind him. Major Soyin approached with a data tablet, her expression grim. I have the final intelligence report you requested. Junho turned away from the viewpoint and faced his intelligence officer. Soyin had been with him for 3 years, and he had never seen her look quite this troubled. Whatever she had discovered down there wasn't good news. Give me the numbers, he said simply. Soyen consulted her tablet, scrolling through pages of detailed analysis. 1,247 confirmed military targets across 17 star systems. This includes everything from small patrol stations to massive orbital defense platforms. We've also cataloged the locations of 34,000 Torax civilians working in non-combatant roles. Junho nodded, mentally filing away the information. The distinction between military and civilian targets would be crucial in the coming operation. Humans had a reputation for ruthless efficiency, but they also followed strict rules about protecting innocent lives. There's something else, sir, Soyen continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. We've discovered that the Torax are using Vellani prisoners as forced labor in their munitions factories. Thousands of them, including children. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop several degrees. Junho's jaw tightened as he processed this information. Using prisoners as slave labor was bad enough, but forcing them to build the very weapons being used to exterminate their own species was a level of cruelty that made his stomach turn. How many prisoners total? He asked. Conservative estimate puts it at 15,000 Vellani across 43 facilities. They're being forced to work 18-hour shifts manufacturing everything from ammunition to starship components. Junho closed his eyes for a moment, thinking through the tactical implications. Mark those facilities for precision extraction operations. We'll need every single prisoner evacuated and in safe custody before we begin sterilization procedures. So looked up from her tablet, confusion clear on her face. Sterilization, sir. I thought this was a rescue operation. Junho met her gaze with the kind of cold certainty that had earned him his command. Major, in exactly 6 hours, the Torax military will cease to exist. Every installation, every command center, every weapons facility will be reduced to atoms. That's not a tactical objective. That's a direct order from Earth Command. The Major stared at him in shock. Sir, that's not defeating an enemy. That's complete elimination. Correct? Junho replied without hesitation. The Torax chose genocide. Now they'll learn what happens when you threaten human-protected civilians. Dr. Taehoon stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, watching alien faces that ranged from curious to terrified. As humanity's chief cultural liaison, he had spent 15 years trying to help other species understand how humans thought. Today, that job felt impossible. The council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as delegates whispered among themselves in dozens of different languages. Everyone had heard the reports coming from Torax space, but nobody could quite believe what they were hearing. Entire military installations simply vanishing without a trace. Command centers reduced to empty craters. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Althari ambassador, tall and elegant with flowing silver robes, raised one graceful hand. Dr. Taehoon, surely you can explain this excessive response. The humans appear to be engaging in total warfare against the Torax. Taehoon sighed, knowing how difficult this would be to explain. Honored delegates, you must understand something fundamental about my species. Humans don't fight wars the way you do. We don't battle for territory or resources or political advantage. We solve problems. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the chamber. The squat Zenthi ambassador leaned forward, his multiple eyes blinking in sequence. What do you mean, solve problems? Warfare is about defeating enemies, not solving anything. That's exactly the difference, Taehoon replied, pulling up a holographic display showing Earth's bloody history. For thousands of years, humans fought each other in terrible conflicts. We learned something that most species never experience. Half measures in warfare only create future wars. The display showed images of ancient battlefields, ruined cities, and countless graves. When humans fought our first global war, we thought we had solved the problem. 20 years later, an even worse war erupted because we hadn't addressed the root causes. That taught us a lesson that shaped our entire approach to conflict. A delicate, bird-like Kairathy delegate spoke up, her voice musical, but worried. But surely modern humans negotiate, compromise, find peaceful solutions. Tehu nodded. Absolutely. Humans prefer peace above all else. We'll negotiate for months, offer aid, share resources, do whatever it takes to avoid violence. But once someone crosses certain lines... He paused, choosing his words carefully. The Torax didn't just attack the Valani. They committed systematic genocide. They burned nurseries full of children first, to maximize psychological damage. The chamber fell silent. Even the most aggressive species represented here found such tactics disturbing. In human thinking, Tehun continued, genocide isn't a political position that you negotiate with. It's not a military strategy that you counter with better tactics. It's a cancer that must be completely removed to prevent it from spreading. The ambassador interrupted, his voice rising. But surely they could have captured Torax leaders, put them on trial, negotiated surrender terms. No, Tehun said quietly, and something in his tone made everyone stop talking. You still don't understand. Humans don't defeat genocidal regimes. They eliminate them entirely. Every command structure, every weapons facility, every military installation that participated in mass murder gets erased. A communication aide rushed into the chamber, handing urgent reports to various delegates. As the aliens read the tactical updates from Torax space, their faces went pale, blue, green, or whatever color indicated shock in their species. The Torax military hadn't been defeated in battle. It had simply ceased to exist. No survivors in command positions. No infrastructure left intact. No capacity to ever threaten anyone again. That's what Deathworlders call mercy, Tehun concluded, watching the horrified faces around him. They let the civilians live. Sub-Admiral Yunji felt the familiar sensation of hyperspace transition as her task force dropped back into normal space above Torax Prime. Through the massive view screen of her flagship, she watched the planet's defense grid slowly rotate, completely unaware that death had just arrived in their system. The Torax Military Academy sprawled across the planet's northern continent like a massive scar on the landscape. For 200 years, this institution had trained officers in the art of conquest and subjugation. Today, it would train its final class. Admiral, all ships reporting successful jump completion, her navigation officer announced. We are in perfect position above primary target. Around her, the bridge crew worked with the kind of calm efficiency that had made human naval forces legendary across the galaxy. No excitement, no battle cries, no dramatic speeches about justice and revenge. Just professionals, doing a job that needed to be done. Yanji checked her tactical display and felt a surge of pride in her species. Coordination abilities. Across 17 star systems, 18 separate human fleets had emerged from hyperspace at exactly the same moment. Perfect timing, no communication delays, no confusion about objectives. The Torax Empire was about to learn why humans had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most effective problem solvers. Ma'am, I'm detecting massive communication traffic from the surface. Her communications officer reported, pressing one hand to his earpiece. The Torax appeared to be in complete panic. Their defense satellites are powering up, but they seem confused about our sudden appearance. Yunji nodded, unsurprised. The Torax had grown comfortable with their reputation as conquerors. They were used to being the ones who appeared without warning above helpless worlds. Today, they were learning how it felt to be on the receiving end of that experience. Any response from Planetary Command? She asked. Yes, ma'am. Multiple surrender offers coming in from various Torax installations. The Academy Commandant is requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations. Several orbital defense platforms are powering down their weapons as a gesture of good faith. Yunji looked at the planet below, thinking about the thousands of Valani children who would never see another sunrise because of decisions made in those very buildings. The Torax had spent months carefully planning their genocide, targeting nurseries and schools first to break Villani morale. They had recorded their atrocities and broadcast them across Villani communication networks to maximize terror. Acknowledged, she said simply. Continue the operation. Her communications officer looked confused. Ma'am, should I respond to their surrender offers? Negative. All surrender communications are irrelevant to our mission parameters. The young officer's face showed his confusion, but he was too well trained to question orders during an active operation. Around the bridge, other crew members exchanged glances but continued their work. They all understood what irrelevant meant in this context. The Trox military had forfeited their right to exist when they chose to commit genocide. This wasn't a battle where surrender was an option. This was an extermination operation designed to permanently solve the problem of Torax aggression. Yunji watched her tactical display. As human ships moved into attack positions with surgical precision, weapon systems that could crack planets were being calibrated for pinpoint accuracy. The goal wasn't destruction for its own sake, but complete elimination of military capability while protecting civilian populations. All ships report ready for simultaneous strike, her tactical officer announced. EUNG took one last look at the planet below, then gave the order that would reshape the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy forever. Execute operation. Cleanslate. Show them how Deathworlders solve problems. The first human weapons fired with deadly silence. Colonel Jiwan stepped through the shattered entrance of Torax Command Central, his boots crunching on broken glass and twisted metal. The massive fortress that had once been the beating heart of the Torax military machine now lay open like a broken egg, its defenses reduced to smoking rubble in less than 20 minutes. Behind him, 200 human marines moved through the corridors with the kind of methodical precision that had made their reputation legendary across known space. No shouting, no chaos, no wild firing at shadows. Just calm, professional soldiers doing what they had trained their entire lives to do. The facility was enormous, stretching deep underground through 15 levels of command centers, communication hubs, and strategic planning rooms. Every decision to burn Villani worlds had been made somewhere in these halls. Every order to target civilian populations had originated from officers working in these very rooms. Colonel, we've reached the main command level, came the voice of Sergeant Dayon through his comm unit. Sector 7 is secure. All Torax command personnel have been eliminated as per operational guidelines. Jiwan nodded, checking his tactical display. Green markers showed cleared sections throughout the facility. His troops were moving like clockwork, room by room, level by level. Civilian casualties. 0, sir. All non-military personnel have been evacuated to designated safety zones. Medical teams are providing care for anyone injured during the initial bombardment. That distinction was absolutely crucial to the success of this operation. Human military doctrine was crystal clear about the difference between combatants and civilians. Torax officers who had participated in genocide were eliminated without hesitation or mercy. But the cooks who prepared their meals, the engineers who maintained their equipment, the cleaning staff who swept their floors, they were escorted to safety with the same care humans would show their own people. Jiwan moved deeper into the command center, past walls lined with tactical displays that still showed the positions of Torax fleets that no longer existed. His troops had found dozens of Torax officers hiding in bunkers, attempting to coordinate some kind of response to the human assault. None of them had succeeded. Sir, we've located the primary communication center, reported Lieutenant Young. From deeper in the facility, the Torax were attempting to coordinate with their remaining fleet elements when we breached the section. All military personnel eliminated, but we found 12 civilian technicians who were forced to maintain their equipment. Status of the civilians: scared but unharmed. Our medics are treating them for minor injuries and providing food. They seemed shocked that we're not executing them, along with their military officers. Jiwan wasn't surprised. Most alien species didn't make such careful distinctions during warfare. When they conquered territory, everyone associated with the enemy usually faced the same fate. But humans had learned long ago that killing innocent people didn't solve problems, it created new ones. Colonel, I have a final report from all sectors. Sergeant Dayun announced over the comm. Thorax Command Central is completely secure. 237 military officers eliminated. 412 civilian personnel evacuated to safety. No human casualties. Jiwan looked around the empty command center, where the most powerful military leaders in Thorax space had planned their genocidal campaigns just hours ago. Now it was silent except for the hum of human equipment being installed to monitor the facility. Understood, Sergeant. Begin Phase 2 operations. I want food distribution centers established for civilian populations within 6 hours. Medical stations operational within 12. These people are under human protection now. Within 12 hours, the entire Thorax Empire's command structure had been systematically dismantled. Not defeated in battle, not captured for trial, but completely eliminated. The surviving civilian population found themselves living under human occupation, fed, protected, and completely disarmed. The Thorax military was gone forever. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen anything like this. Emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of species packed into every available seat, their voices creating a chaotic symphony of shock, fear, and outrage. At the center of it all sat Ambassador Yuna, as calm and composed as if she were discussing the weather. The reports had been flooding in for 6 hours straight. Complete elimination of Thorax military forces across 17 star systems. Not a single Thorax warship remained operational. Not one command center still functioned. The entire military infrastructure of a civilization that had terrorized this sector for 2 centuries had simply vanished. The tall, elegant Althari representative stood first, his silver robes flowing dramatically as he pointed an accusatory finger at the human delegation. This is not warfare. This is not even conquest. You didn't defeat the Thorax military, you eliminated them completely. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Species that had never agreed on anything were united in their horror at what humanity had accomplished in less than 24 hours. Yuna looked up from her data tablet with the same expression she might wear while reviewing lunch menus. That is correct, Ambassador Kethril. The Thorax military no longer exists in any meaningful capacity. They cannot threaten the Villani yourselves, or anyone else in this galaxy. The chamber erupted in shocked gasps and angry shouting. The bird-like Kyrathi delegate fluttered her feathers in distress. But what about prisoners of war? What about military tribunals? What about the basic rules of civilized conflict? The Thorax committed systematic genocide, Yuna replied simply. They broadcast recordings of burning nurseries to terrorize their victims. In human understanding, such actions place them outside the boundaries of civilized conflict. The squat, Zent the ambassador waved multiple arms frantically. But the survivors, the Thorax, civilians, they're traumatized, conquered, living under foreign occupation. How can you call this a humanitarian mission? Yuna's expression didn't change by even a fraction. They are alive, Ambassador Grex. They are being fed, housed, and provided with medical care. Their children will grow up in a peaceful society, without military indoctrination, or the glorification of conquest. That's not the point, shouted the crystalline Nexari representative, his voice creating harmonics that made other species wince. You've destroyed their entire way of life, their culture, their independence. Their culture included the systematic murder of civilian populations, Yuna responded. Their independence was built on the suffering of conquered species. We have eliminated those aspects while preserving everything else. The chamber fell into an uneasy silence as delegates processed what they were hearing. The humans genuinely believed they had performed a mercy mission. In their minds, allowing Torax civilians to live constituted incredible restraint and compassion. The ancient ethereal delegate, so old that most species considered her a living legend, spoke for the first time in decades. Her voice was barely a whisper, but every being in the chamber strained to hear her words. "I have seen civilizations rise and fall for 1,000 years, she said slowly. "I have witnessed conquest, occupation, revolution, and liberation, but never have I seen anything like this. You have not conquered the Torax. You have ... edited them." Yuna nodded respectfully toward the elderly alien. "That is an accurate description, Elder Mir. We have removed the harmful elements while preserving everything else. We consider this a successful humanitarian intervention." The council members stared at the human ambassador with a mixture of fascination and terror. They were beginning to understand something fundamental about humanity that they had never grasped before. Humans didn't just solve problems, they solved them permanently. And in their alien minds, this constituted mercy. The galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Haisu knelt in the rich black soil of what had once been the Villani homeworld's most fertile valley, carefully placing seedlings that would eventually grow into the massive fruit trees that had fed this civilization for thousands of years. Around her, dozens of human engineers worked alongside surviving Villani farmers, their advanced terraforming equipment humming quietly as it repaired damage that the Torax had thought was permanent. The devastation had been worse than anyone imagined. The Torax hadn't just burned Villani cities, they had poisoned the soil, contaminated the water sources, and released biological weapons designed to make entire continents uninhabitable for generations. It was systematic environmental warfare, intended to ensure that even if any Villani survived, they would slowly starve on their own poisoned worlds. But humans understood environmental restoration in ways that most galactic species found almost magical. Earth had recovered from its own near-extinction events multiple times throughout history, and those hard-learned lessons were now being applied to heal worlds light years away. The atmospheric processors will need another week to completely neutralize the chemical contamination, Haisu explained to the group of Villani agricultural specialists watching her work. But the soil is already safe for planting. Your grandchildren will see these valleys green again. Elder Cathara approached slowly, his ancient blue scales dulled by grief and exhaustion. As the senior surviving leader of his people, he had carried the impossible burden of watching his entire civilization nearly destroyed while feeling powerless to stop it. Now he watched humans perform what seemed like miracles with the same casual efficiency they had used to eliminate his people's tormentors. "Dr. Haisu," he said in his soft, musical voice, "I must ask you something that has been troubling me since your ships arrived." Haisu looked up from her soil analysis equipment, giving the elderly alien her full attention. She had worked with trauma survivors before, and understood that sometimes questions were more important than answers. "Of course, Elder, what would you like to know?" Cathara gestured toward the valley around them, where human and Villani workers labored side by side to restore what had been lost. "Why are you doing this? Why help us rebuild after what we witnessed your people do to the Torax?" The question hung in the air between them. Haisu could see the confusion and fear in the old alien's large eyes. Like most galactic species, the Villani had never encountered anything like humanity's approach to problem-solving. They had watched humans systematically eliminate an entire military civilization in less than a day, then immediately begin caring for both the survivors and the victims with equal dedication. "The Torax threatened your children," Haisu replied simply, returning to her work with the seedlings. In human understanding, protecting children is not negotiable. Ever. "We eliminated the threat." "But so completely," Cathara whispered, his voice filled with something between awe and horror. "You didn't just defeat them or drive them away. You erased them." Haisu nodded without hesitation. Yes, so it can never happen again. To anyone. The elder was quiet for a long moment, watching human engineers redirect a poisoned river back to its natural course, using technology that seemed to bend reality itself. Your species frightens us, he admitted finally. The way you solve problems is unlike anything we've ever seen. I understand, Haisu said gently. But consider, your children are alive, because we solved the problem permanently. The Thorax will never threaten anyone's children again. Not yours, not ours, not anyone's. Cathara struggled to comprehend this alien concept of protection. Through total elimination of threats. In Villani culture, conflicts were resolved through negotiation, compromise, and gradual change. The human approach of complete, permanent solutions seemed almost incomprehensible. But as he watched his people's world slowly return to life under human care, he began to understand that sometimes mercy looked different than anyone expected. 6 months had passed since the day that changed everything in the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber looked exactly the same as always, crystalline walls reflecting soft light. Hundreds of different species arranged in their traditional seating areas, the familiar hum of translation devices, converting thoughts into universal language. But everyone who sat in those seats knew that nothing would ever truly be the same again. Ambassador Yuna walked to the central platform with the same calm confidence she had shown on that first day when the Villani delegate collapsed in desperation. Today, she carried a simple datapad, containing the final report on what galactic historians were already calling the Thorax incident. The term seemed inadequate for something that had fundamentally shifted the balance of power in known space. The chamber was unusually quiet as delegates waited to hear humanity's official statement on the events that had shocked the civilized galaxy. Representatives who had once dismissed humans as newcomers now watched Yuna with the kind of careful attention usually reserved for natural disasters or approaching comets. Honored delegates, Yuna began, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. 6 months ago, you asked the Terran Republic for help with the Thorax genocide against the Villani people. Today, I am here to provide our final report on that humanitarian intervention. She activated her datapad, displaying holographic images above the central platform. The first showed thriving Villani agricultural worlds, their skies blue and clear. Their cities rebuilding with a mixture of traditional architecture and advanced human technology. The Villani are safe, Yuna stated simply. Their population has stabilized at approximately 4.7 million survivors. Human medical teams have treated trauma-related conditions in 93% of survivors. Educational programs are being established to help Villani children process their experiences and build healthy futures. The next image showed former Thorax worlds, now under human administrative oversight. Clean cities, functioning infrastructure, and most remarkably, Thorax civilians going about daily life with what appeared to be normal routines. Thorax survivors are rebuilding their society, Yuna continued. All civilian populations have access to food, medical care, education, and employment opportunities. Their children are learning agriculture, engineering, arts, and sciences. Military training has been permanently discontinued. The Althari ambassador shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Ambassador Yuna, what about their independence, their right to self-determination? They retain full cultural autonomy in all non-military matters, Yuna replied without hesitation. They practice their traditional religions, speak their native languages, maintain their family structures, and govern their local communities. They simply no longer possess the capacity to commit genocide. A whisper ran through the chamber. The clinical way humans described the complete elimination of an entire civilization's military capability still unnerved most species, even after 6 months of reports and analysis. The genocide has ended permanently, Yuna announced, and those words carried a weight that made every delegate in the chamber unconsciously lean forward. There will be no Thorax military revival in 50 years. No gradual rearmament. No eventual return to aggressive expansion. The problem has been solved. The ancient ethereal delegate spoke in her whisper-thin voice, and this is what humans call mercy. Yuna nodded respectfully toward the elderly alien. This is what mercy looks like. To us, Elder Moralith, the threat eliminated completely, the innocent protected permanently, the future secured for everyone. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the hundreds of alien faces, watching her with expressions ranging from awe, to terror, to reluctant admiration. We hope you never need our help again, Yuna concluded, her voice carrying the same quiet certainty that had marked humanity's entry into galactic politics. But if genocide threatens innocent lives anywhere in this galaxy, if children are targeted for systematic murder, if civilizations face extinction at the hands of those who would call such acts conquest, ... double quotes, she paused meaningfully. We will respond. The chamber remained silent, long after Yuna had returned to her seat. Every species represented there now understood a fundamental truth about humanity that would shape interstellar politics for generations to come. Humans didn't negotiate with evil. They removed it entirely, and they genuinely believed this was kindness.